Stakeholders aren't just people waiting in line at the butcher or hanging around at a barbecue. They're also a very important part of our cases in debates.
And because they're so important, we need to do something called characterization. Now, I'm sure you've all heard an adjudicator sometimes say you need to do more characterization. But what does that even mean? Characterization is how we describe how a stakeholder will react to a certain topic in a debate. Welcome back to Conquering Debating. I'm Nikki.
And I'm James. Today we're going to be talking about characterizing stakeholders. And there are a few steps that we're going to go through for you to do this.
You can't characterize a stakeholder in a debate until you recognize who the stakeholder is first. Stakeholders are people or groups of people who are affected or have a stake in the debate. In other words, they are impacted or affected by the debate. It's really important to identify the key stakeholders so we can analyze how they will react and how they will be affected by different debating topics.
Remember, a stakeholder is slightly different to an actor in a debate. An actor is someone who has the power to change something. Usually they're identified by the topic, and usually they're the government. A stakeholder, on the other hand, may only respond to the topic and have to adapt. You can see our video on actors for more information about this.
If we looked at the topic that we should ban smoking, we can consider a wide variety of different stakeholders. When we look at the people, we could consider the smokers themselves, their families, their friends, and doctors. But then we can also go deeper than that if we consider other things like the people who make cigarettes, the companies, the health system, and the environment.
Identifying and evaluating key stakeholders in the debate will really help your characterization. Your characterization is like the picture you paint about how the world looks for the stakeholders involved in the debate.
Effective characterization is really important in a debate because we're trying to prove to the adjudicator why the world we have created is better for the most important stakeholders than the world that the opposition has created. You should identify the most important stakeholders by stating who they are, how they will benefit, and why they will benefit.
If we look at the topic that robots should not be allowed to replace human workers, we can see that there are some stakeholders that are more important to the affirmative team than the negative team, like the human workers themselves. We can also see that there are some stakeholders that are more important to the negative team, like corporations that could replace the human workers or scientists that develop robotic technology. It's all about using characterization to convince the adjudicator that your stakeholders are most important.
It's really important to always try and characterize a stakeholder. It's important to think about why they look and act the way they will. The other team isn't just going to give you a free pass because they'll start a characterization too. And so the entire debate will have a back and forth argument about the different characterizations of each stakeholder.
Let's say we have a topic that involves the stakeholder of a non-violent offender. One team might choose to characterize non-violent offenders as not inherently bad people. They're just victims of circumstance. The other team might choose to categorize them as bad people because anyone who makes a choice to commit a crime must be bad in some way. No answer is 100% right 100% of the time. It's about showing the adjudicator that in this debate, your characterization is most true for the most amount of people most of the time.
The last step, analysis, is a bit similar to the ones we've done above, but it's a bit more specific because it helps you answer that why question. Analysis really looks at all the factors that play in a stakeholder's decision-making process. So this could be, what do they care about? What do they want to achieve? What are the internalized biases? And what are their ideologies?
There are so many things that can affect people's decision-making. Maybe people have an addiction or are pressured by necessity. People also operate with a lot of biases. These biases could include an optimism bias, which is a belief that they will always be right, a confirmation bias, which means they'll act in a way which affirms what they already believe, an ideology bias, which is a view of how the world should be and what will make it that way, as well as other biases such as racism, sexism, or stereotypes. Even their own personal history and experiences in the past will influence the decisions they make in the future. All these factors and more will change the way a stakeholder acts, and they are essential to think about in characterization so that you can prove the stakeholder will act the way you say they will.
Let's take a look at another example. When we think about someone who's addicted to gambling, we could say that because of their addiction, it influences their ability to make a rational choice that's in their best interest. Or, when looking at another example, there are often many racist and sexist hiring practices, and people often use these stereotypes to influence their decisions. So it's really important that we take into account measures that reduce that.
So there we have it, a few steps to follow to make sure that you are properly characterizing your stakeholders. Remember, once you've identified the most relevant and important stakeholders in the debate, keep asking yourself why to make sure that you're characterizing properly.
We hope you learned something from this video. Remember to hit like and subscribe to see more content. See you next time.
Bye.